Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Whole Foods Market has Thanksgiving gatherings covered. First things first, reserve your no antibiotics ever fresh whole turkey today, starting at $2.99 a pound. Or go with their organic spiral cut bone-in ham, full of seared-in flavor. For sides, choose Whole Foods Market grab-and-go platters. Go even further and get your whole meal catered. Just order online by November 26th. Get Thanksgiving ready at Whole Foods Market. Terms apply.
Hello and welcome to The Shift, the podcast that aims to tell the no-holds-barred truth about being a woman post-40. Created and hosted by me, writer and broadcaster Sam Baker. My guest today is a woman who is credited with putting poetry back on the map, Donna Ashworth. Donna came to prominence in 2020 when a poem that she wrote about lockdown was read in a viral video to raise money for the NHS. She subsequently self-published her first volume of poetry, To the Women, which sold over 100,000 copies. Unsurprisingly, the publishing industry came calling. Now the UK's best-selling poet, Donna has written 8 books, including the bestsellers Wild Hope and I Wish I Knew. And you'll find them on the bedside tables of millions of women, including Dawn French and Fern Cotton. Her latest, Growing Brave, a collection of words to soothe fear and let more life in, feels, once again, perfectly pitched for the times that we're living through.
Never attach your self-worth to something that moves. Your weight, your looks, your career, your relationship, your talents. All of these things can change. They can be taken, they can be removed, they can move.
Donna joined me for what is probably the most emotionally intelligent conversation I've ever had on The Shift. We talked about being dubbed the difficult one and how we grow into the labels we're given, how to win the self-worth battle, the secret to being well-boundaried, why she doesn't care for a man-made timeline, and finding her calling in midlife. Also, I should warn you that Donna is incredibly generous and candid when it comes to talking about her experience of anorexia and how it feels to age with an eating disorder. Thank you for coming on The Shift, Donna. It's so lovely to see you. I'm delighted to have you here.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Wow, where should we start? Before we talk about your poetry, let's talk about how you got here, because you did come pretty late to poetry, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I'm one of those people that always enjoyed writing poetry. There's always one in every sort of friendship group or family. You will know somebody who can jot down a few verses for a wedding or, a celebration. There's always a poet in every sort of group of people, I think. And that was always me, but never to any end, just for fun. I didn't avidly read poetry, but whenever I came across it, I loved it. And I maybe sought it out in times of, struggle. But it never even occurred. And I was a songwriter in my early 20s. And I really thoroughly enjoyed being a songwriter, and it was all about the lyrics for me. So it's kind of the same thing, but it never actually occurred to me that you would consider poetry a career or a job, or that you could do anything to get into the world of poetry. I wouldn't even thought it to be possible. So it has been a really roundabout and very organic way in which I've arrived here, which it's lovely, really, because I didn't come at it with any kind of premeditated plan. It wasn't even on my wish list, or, I didn't even have the sort of visualization to manifest it or anything like that. It kind of got me by the hand and brought me here. And I think lockdown was the catalyst to turn that from something that I was just doing on social media into something that I was doing.
Yeah, we'll come on to that in a moment. When you were a little kid, what kind of little girl were you? That face. Yeah. I feel like that too about that time.
I think I was quite a stampy footy little girl. I was quite difficult. I heard that word a lot growing up and in my actually all through my life.
Who told you were difficult when you were a little girl?
Well, you just stop being difficult. Oh, do you have to be difficult? Oh, you're always so difficult, and it's not as though it came particularly from anyone. More that I just know that I heard it a lot and I believed it about myself. And I still believe it about myself to this day, except now that I know that I'm not being difficult. The world is difficult for me. And that all comes down to neurodiversion and the coming to that diagnosis in later life. So I had a lot of sensory issues. At the time, sensory issues weren't a thing. I was just difficult. I didn't like loud noises. I didn't like this. I didn't like that. I had a sister who was very easy, and she was so serene and gracious and went with the flow, and I was the exact opposite. So I grew up very much feeling that about myself. And I suppose in a way I used the difficult side of myself and harnessed that because I knew that sort of fiery and well-boundaried version of myself could get things done. So I kind of settled into this belief that, I might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I can get some things done. I'm good at some things. I'm clever. I can work hard. But as a child, I think I needed a lot of attention. But looking back now, and with my own son, who's autistic and has ADHD, I can see that it's nothing to do with him. It's to do with the situations that he's been put into before. He has the neuro capacity to cope with it. And as he's gotten older, with acceptance, understanding, information, he's completely able to handle all of these things, age 16, because he's accepted it. He knows himself. He understands how his brain works. And it's been quite fascinating to watch his journey, knowing mine could have been a bit like that too.
Yeah, yours could have been so much smoother. I mean, I think that's probably the case for so many people in their 40s and 50s, isn't it? Thinking, if only I'd known this before. Being kind of dubbed difficult, how did that manifest for you at school and as a teenager? How did you cope with that?
I still have these recurring dreams where somebody is accusing me of something and I didn't do it. But because I'm so used to being blamed for it, or I know how that story goes, oh, she's being difficult again, I overreact immediately and have to throw a giant tantrum and everybody's looking at me like, what? Oh, that line, there she goes again. My best friend, Jenny, and I often talk about this because she has these dreams as well. And it's that sort of moniker that a lot of women get where you're over emotional. Oh, she's off again. She's crying again. Or, oh, she's on one again. I do get very passionate about things that I care about, and injustice, again, with the neurodiversion, the injustice. I can't stay quiet. I've learned over the years how to use my voice and when, because, most of the time you're bawling into the wind and it's, it's not good for you. I was always very defensive, I think, because I was almost waiting on somebody to say, oh, do you have to be difficult? So in a way, I made myself more difficult. But I find it all really fascinating to look back on it now and just, analyse how that happened and how we grow into the names that we're given, don't we? If we hear a word, an adjective, a few times over, we take it and we become it. No matter what, nobody tells us to detach from that or, don't own that. That's not yours to own. That's somebody else's perception of you. I think if we were pointed these things out quite early on, pathways would look a lot different, which is something that I'm always trying to do through my words, is offer those little perspectives. And, maybe you're not difficult. Maybe you're in the wrong room. You know what I mean? And as long as you're aware that you're finding this room difficult, look how well you're doing in this difficult room. It changes the way you feel about yourself and your self-worth. And your self-worth is absolutely everything. It's the core. Nothing works without your self-worth being, looked after. But it's all very fascinating.
Oh, there's so many things I want to ask you about that now. When did you're so right about self-worth, and so many women don't have it or don't have much. When did you get a hold of yours, do you think?
Oh, that's a very good question. I got a hold of it when I started writing poetry, and it wasn't overnight. I didn't do it deliberately. It wasn't an active, thing that I set out to do, but I could see that it happened over the first couple of years. And it was confronting sharing poetry on social media. And I had to feel a lot of cringe, and I had to feel a lot of things, this mask that I had worn my entire life had to come off. And once you start removing those layers that you've fashioned, they start to unravel themselves. You're no longer in control of the unraveling. It's like you kicked it off, but now it's been handed over to, something different, and you're just on the ride. One started the other, and they both bolstered each other along the way, but I've had to put the work in, and I'm still doing it to this day. There isn't a day where I wake up and feel completely, at peace within my skin, or deserving of what I have, or, imposter syndrome is nowhere to be seen. I have to work at these things on a daily basis, and I have my little ways of doing that, things that I say to myself, perspectives that I employ. It's not quite, muscle memory is coming along, but we're going against 45 years of, I'm 49 now. I'd say that I've been actively winning the self-worth battle for about 5 years. So there's a lot to be, rewound, and I'm in no rush every day. That I'm feeling like this is better than the first half of my life. So it's a gift.
Well, it's undoing, isn't it? Like you say, 45 years of wiring. But also, while you're undoing your own personal wiring, the wiring continues around you.
It does. And you're wiring other people. We're parenting, we are, or your relationships, whatever, and with me doing what I'm doing with my words, that's wiring in a way. So it's constantly, rewiring yourself, but also making sure that the original wiring that you're doing in other places in your world, especially with my boys, I want to make sure that their wiring has been done right from the get-go. But we only know what we know when we know it. And you can't go back and, change what you've done in the past. All you can do is continue to evolve and grow. And I think admitting to every single thing that you look at and think, I wasn't doing that in the way that I could have been doing that. But that's all right. I see it now. How brilliant that I see it. Where do we go? And not sort of dwelling in the regrets for too long. When my son was diagnosed with autism, there was a free fall period for me. And it was right before the lockdown. I descended into, emotional and mental chaos within, where his life played like a movie in my mind from day one. My mind, whether I wanted it to or not, went through every single thing that he ever did and I ever did, and how wrong that was, because I didn't know that he was autistic. And I realised about halfway through this, I can't stop this movie playing. It's going to play out. I have to look at it all. My mind wants me to see it. These are, but I don't have to hurt myself with it. This is not here to hurt me or punish me, because it was painful. It's here now to show me, what comes next and how we pick up and how we move on. But that was a terribly, maybe 3 or 4 months for me, where I couldn't do anything but go through that movie in my mind until I'd seen it all. And I think that is like an unraveling, the self-unraveling that you have is similar.
Yeah, it's like we learn so early to blame and shame ourselves that even at a point when you're coming out of it, the instinct is still, like you say, to confront something, but then blame yourself for having done it, or shame yourself for having let it happen, or
really throw salt in your own wounds, and you really use it against yourself, because we're so against ourselves. If you stop to analyze your inner voice, it's hideous. If you catch it unawares and things it's just been saying to you, you would be disgusted if you said that to anybody else. And we use these things. I knew it. I knew you weren't a good person. I knew you would mess this up. Of course you've not been a great parent. You've not been a great person. You're not even a great human, and I think you've got to be really aware of that and even see it with a bit of humor whenever you can, because it is painful, but it's also funny. There's a fine line between, deep pain and the humor that lifts us and, brings us out where we can see it better. Just like there's a fine line between love and grief, the coin flips daily. So we can flip daily. I think we get caught in this, I've slipped back. And no, you just flip it back. It's going to flip 100 times, a week. But you have the power to flip. And as long as you remember, you can look at any side of the coin whenever you like, without ignoring the other side, because it's important. I think these little tools that we can have, at our disposal they're lifesavers.
So how do you think, because at the beginning when we were talking, you just in passing described yourself as well-boundaried. Brilliant. I mean, life goals. Yeah. So how did you get from, I'm really interested in how you got from the difficult girl and the one who was putting a lot of pressure on herself just to be things that she wasn't. And you dropped out of university, didn't you? And got eaten up and spat out by the record industry, as so many, possibly the most brutal industry in the world.
Yeah. At the time, especially.
Yeah. When was that? Was it the 90s?
Oh yeah, way back before, anything. Nobody was talking about mental well-being or, boundaries.
God, no. Yeah.
So yeah, it was a scary time, I think, in the music industry.
And it's seen, isn't it, as, I mean, back then, working in the 90s and noughties, that anything like that would have just been seen as a weakness, not, like you said, not that the room was wrong, but that you were wrong. So how did you get to a point where in lockdown you were writing poetry and putting it out to, obviously not initially, but before very long, to hundreds of thousands of people? Because that takes some real guts.
I think I had really woken up one day and just thought, I'm exhausted. And I put it down to this, I woke up tired one day, and not just tired. I had 2 kids. I was knackered. Yeah. I mean, tired of keeping it up, tired of pretending that I was a really organised person and I always on time and I got everything right, and you can rely on Donna. She'll never let you down. She's a great parent. Oh, how does she do it? And she's always socialising and she always looks great. And, I was exhausted by the weight of, I had built this beautiful life and none of it served me.
Who had you built it for, do you think?
Because I'm neurodiverse, most neurodiverse people have created a character and they know that character is accepted, that character fits in. And therefore you've done it, you've passed muster, you're normal. And so this character that I had created to make everybody think that I was completely normal was exhausting for me. The real me is flaky, always laughing, always crying, sometimes gets it really wrong and isn't afraid to say, oh gosh, sorry, what an idiot I am, but not in a what an idiot I am, in a what an idiot, in a loving, capacity, knowing that you're just really busy and you can't possibly get everything right. It's never overnight, and nor did I realise I was doing it at the time. It's only the vision of hindsight that I see what I was doing. It's quite obvious what I was doing. I was finally stepping out of the suit that I had stitched to fit into the world. I thought, wonder if the world could accept me. I tell them that I'm really weird and that I speak fluent backwards and, that this is what I think about and that, I am difficult and that I have sensory issues and so on and so forth. And so it came about over a few years. And it's only looking back, you can see it in one lovely little parcel journey, which I think is the same for everybody. You don't really know it at the time.
What was going on in your life at that time? Do you think, was it just, I want to say just, I mean, was it the pressure of being in that point in midlife where like you've got the kids? I mean, I don't know, did you also have like aging parents?
I mean, yeah, my gran and I were very close. If you've ever had that relationship with a grandparent in which, you know, that sort of the skip the generation, and it's almost like you're the one that reminds everyone of that person. You're the closest, you know, likeness to them. Most of their DNA has come to you, or whatever it is. My gran and I are like peas in a pod. That had happened. My husband's dad had passed away really quickly in succession to one another. We were running a business together, my husband and I. My kids were young. They were in a really wonderful school, a private school. And the private school was like, go, 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 achieve, achieve, achieve. And, you know, it was really starting to trigger me because I had been a perfectionist and, you know, an overachiever. And I was starting to see, what is the point? Why are we pushing all of these children to overachieve between the ages of 7 and 14 to be the very best footballer, the very best athlete? They're not going to be footballers or athletes. It's highly unlikely. You know, it's a tiny wee percent. Why are we taking away all their free time, making them do homework at the weekends? And all through the summer holidays, it had built up to a crescendo for me. And I wanted to rip down the entire wallpaper and just go, nope, start again. But how do you do that? It's terrifying. You can't just rip apart everybody's life. It would be selfish. So I suppose the writing was my way, because this is what I was writing about. Perfectionism, being pushed too hard, society, the rat race, you know, this need to constantly have more and be better. And you get a new car, you get a new house, then you want a better one. You know, your friends are going on this amazing holiday. You want to do that too. So you're running to earn, to spend, to get. And I just wanted to look around and shout to everybody, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe there's another way. You know, maybe this is not what we should be doing. And it was deafening to me at the time. So I started to unravel myself bit by writing. And when my friends tackled me on it and said, are you okay? You all right? You shared quite a poem today. I would say, oh yeah, I'm just writing that poem for work. You know, it's art. It's not me. It's creation. It's for someone else who might need it.
So you had to pretend to justify doing it. You had to pretend it wasn't you.
I'm a slow burner with things like that. I have to grow my bravery. I have to grow my, you know, I can't just acquire it overnight when it's been, you know, abused for so long. So it gave me a bit of time, and then eventually I was able to go, actually, this is how my brain works and this is how I feel. And that's all right. You'll probably find there's someone else in this very room who feels exactly the same sometimes. And of course there is, and there always is. And people put their hands up and say, me too. And suddenly what felt very dark to you and very lonely becomes a shared connection. It's almost instantly cured as soon as you realise that there are other people and it's not that dark, and they get through it and you can get through it. And suddenly there's the strength.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy.
Oh.
Hear that?
Okay. Thank you.
Etsy knows these aren't the sounds of holiday gifting. Well, not the ones you're hoping for. You want squeals of delight. Happy tears.
How did you?
And spontaneously written songs of joy.
I am so happy. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, the song needs a bit of work, but anyway, to get those reactions, make sure everyone on your list feels heard with handmade, handpicked, and designed gifts from small shops on Etsy. Gifts like personalized jewelry, custom artwork, cozy style items, vintage pieces, and home decor to celebrate all of your favorite people and their specific kind of special. For original gifts that say, I get you, Etsy has it.
I mean, clearly it resonated so hard with so many people. I mean, 1.5 million followers on social media. And I mean, how many books have you even sold now?
It's not millions. I would know if it was millions. I think somebody would have told me. But it's a lot for poetry or for what I'm doing. And I think that in itself, I have been the best-selling poet in the UK for a couple of years now. Numbers in poetry have risen exponentially, higher than they've ever been since time began. So poetry itself is having a movement. You know, I always say, people say, don't focus on the numbers. I like to focus on the numbers sometimes because it's about abundance, you know, and it's important that you're on board with your own abundance and that you want it to succeed. And just like words, numbers are a part of that. But it all comes back to, what are you attaching your self-worth to? The numbers are wonderful because you can look at them and say, right, wouldn't it be great if, you know, these numbers rose and poetry's going everywhere and people are healing and words are being used. Is how I like to look at it. It's not me. People are enjoying daily words for mental well-being. What a wonderful thing. I don't then feel the pressure to go, this is me, or this compliment's for me. It's for the words. That's how I, you know, handle it. But you don't attach your self-worth to that if they're not doing it. It's not your fault. You know, you can wish for abundance and you can be open to it, but you can't penalize yourself when it isn't there. So it's about what you attach your self-worth to.
That's so admirable, but it's also so hard, isn't it? Because you tell yourself that you care much less what other people think, and you know, you probably do, and I do. But then you just know that your mood is influenced when, you know, a piece that you write gets tens of thousands of views versus just a few thousand. Have you got any, asking for a friend, have you got any tricks for turning that off?
So you'll never stop it, I don't think. Just like you can't stop your sadness visiting you, and you can't stop joy, because if you do, you know, what have you got? You must allow these feelings to come, but you must watch them. You know, I learned from a very early age, when I was badly anorexic, my mum taught me how to become a watcher. So you take yourself out of you for a moment and watch what is going on with the feelings and the emotions. And that way you're not overwhelmed by them. You're not physically swamped by them. You can see, if you come out, you can see, I'm overwhelmed. I'm jealous. You know, I'm terrified of failure and it's making me defensive. You can see it better if you watch. So when a post goes viral, and I get that high, and it's exciting, everybody's messaging me, and it's like, oh, I watch it and I go, enjoy that, Donna, but, you know, remember and be aware and remember what this is about. This is about words flying everywhere and people connecting, and that will ripple on for 6 months. You won't see it in a month's time. It will be quiet and you won't be viral. The connections that were made will still be rippling and the good will still be happening. You just can't see it. So it's about remembering that the good is always underneath there. It's always happening, whether social media chooses your video that day or not, because that's what it is. It's an algorithm. It's not you. You've not been so amazing today that you've gone viral. You're amazing every time, but the algorithm has chosen you today. And you are the favoured one, so use the moment in the sun.
Well, I love the kind of watching thing. I think that's a really good piece of advice. You were a teenager when you developed an eating disorder. How long did that go on for?
I mean, I was critically ill as a teenager. I got out of that stage enough that people would leave me alone. Because at that time it was, the doctor said, you know, let me weigh you every week. And when you need to put on weight, there was no other help. My mum, who we call the white witch of our family, took me and got me into Reiki. I did my first degree in Reiki. I learned how to give Reiki. Reiki and affirmations and Louise Hay, her books, saved my life. They literally got me out of it enough that I could love myself a bit and I could thrive a bit. And I went off into the world on the cruise ships as a singer. And I got maybe about 4 or 5 years where I was okay. And then I fell very back into it again to the point where I became, and that was when I was trying to become in the music industry, when I got signed, you know, that was when things really ramped up. I left home, I moved to Manchester by myself. No friends, no mentors, nobody checking in on me every day. The management would sort of check in with me every couple of weeks, and, we didn't have email or, social media. So it really got to the bones of me then for a few years. And it wasn't until I finished the music industry and I said, never again will I sing a song for the rest of my life. I am done. I think I was 26. And I said to my mum, I'm ready now. And my mum had been waiting and waiting and waiting. So she took me to her little cabin in the north of Scotland. And we stayed there for 3 weeks until I was a bit like somebody coming off of an addictive substance. I distinctly remember one, because I would eat constantly. Not constantly, I wasn't like... But what we did is we took away the scales and I just ate normal meals with mum all day, every day. And we talked about every feeling and we wrote it down, and bless my mum, how wonderful that she did this. But I remember one day being so bad that she had to put me in the car and take me to the doctors to be weighed. For myself, we had to ask for the scales because we didn't want to go and buy any. And I just needed the weigh. I just needed to know the numbers. She didn't sort of, put me down for that or say you failed, or that was just, we're getting there, that's all right. To think that I needed to know my weight so, compulsively now, I don't weigh myself at all. I've had to weigh myself before for when we went skiing. And, occasionally my husband weighs himself and occasionally I'll hop on. But I speak to myself first and I go, this means absolutely nothing. So my mum and I did that and we broke it. And then I had to go back, and then there was a long period of now trying to make this work for myself, continuing the healing and getting out of it. And that really, it takes a few years. My weight crept up and up and up, which is the worst thing you can tell somebody who is anorexic. They think that is the end. But it did. And I survived, I suddenly experienced what it was like to be a heavier person, which I had never been before. And that changed my perspective on everything in life and gave me a whole new set of, experiences. And then, like most things, the balance came. You find a medium in the middle. And that's, for me, is just a natural. I don't choose it. I don't make it happen. I don't count calories or watch what I eat. I try to exercise. I try to eat healthy. So I feel very lucky to have come through it. When really difficult times happen, my thinking will go back there immediately. And I know how to pull it out, and I know how to watch it and allow it to do it a little bit as well sometimes. And then you've got aging, which brings a whole new perspective to this. I'm not perfect. Look at me. I'm letting myself go, because that's what it is. It's a symbol of being in control. And I think it's an addiction as well. Every day when I stop to think about it, that I can just eat and not feel sick with shame or disgust or fear or dread. I remember how far I've come and how, every single thing that I eat is an absolute gift. But it's still a very difficult thing for anybody to get out of.
Yeah, it's like, speaking to other people about it, it's not like with alcohol. I know it's not easy, but you can walk away. You can't walk away from food.
I stopped drinking 1.5 years ago. My husband is sober. So for 1.5 years too, we did it together. But I had a glass of champagne after 1 year, with a friend to say, cheers. I'm not sort of sober, although I've only had 2 glasses of champagne. He's in the program, he's in AA, and he's really loved the steps and finding out more about himself. It's therapy. It's it's a wonderful thing to do, and you walk away once you unstitch the habits that you formed. How intricately it's woven into our lives, alcohol. But once you've rewritten your nightly rituals and your weekend rituals, and you've got that sorted, I think about 3 to 6 months. You can abstain. You can't abstain from food. You have to face it 3 times every day. And I don't think anybody can understand that until they've been there. Because even when you're not eating the food or trying to eat the food, you're thinking about that you have to eat the food, or that you don't want to eat the food, whatever it is. you need the food. You don't need alcohol. So it's a really, really complicated and difficult process, but it's totally doable. And you're not looking for the quick fix. You've not fallen back. Every single regression that you have, you're still ahead. You know, you haven't lost all of that wisdom and all of that journey. You're still ahead of where you were. It just feels like a step back, but you're always, everything loops in a circle anyway. You're always circularly moving forward. So it's about being in it for the long run and not, oh, I'm cured. You don't need to be able to say you're cured. You just need to be able to say, I'm healing, I'm healthy.
I think it's so interesting because I was reading some research, a while ago now, about the way that eating disorders people with eating disorders do experience a resurgence, often in midlife around perimenopause. It makes total sense, doesn't it? Because like you were saying, you kind of, all of those things that you've been told matter, the way you're meant to look, the things that women are meant to do, the way a woman is meant to be, all those things, if you buy into them and have bought into them, which so many of us have to a lesser or greater degree, you feel like those are being ripped away. And so it seems logical that, like, the way that it kicks in puberty, it's about, like you said, it's about control. Perimenopause is another time of life when you feel like, the control is being taken away. So you clutch for it.
But control is a funny old thing, I don't think we were ever meant to have control. It's wonderful to control your hormones and help with medicine and the way that things have evolved. We can now give ourselves, the hormones that we need for a bit longer or whatever that may be. But then knowing you can have the control over your aging skin, the way you look, that's a problem for me, because knowing you can control that, the pressure of that, it then becomes it's in your hands. Do you choose to do it or not? If you choose to do it, that is a big commitment to make. And that is a never-ending journey of you're on the wrong side of it, because you can only do so much. And then it goes into other territory. You're fighting time. You're fighting the aging process, which was never supposed to be fought. When you think about your health, I get it. It's wonderful to be able to help your health. And people say, well, just help your skin, help your wrinkles. But my worry is I could become completely addicted to that process. That if I see the wrinkles coming back, I've lost control. And so I'm on this very sort of cusp where all my wrinkles have arrived at once. And I'm suddenly seeing a lot of pictures of myself all the time. And I'm on podcasts and maybe even the odd TV thing. And that's very confronting, because wait a minute, who's that? I never liked my face in the first place. Never mind now when it's all, So I'm constantly having to work on that aspect of my outlook and perspective. And because I have this overactive, overthinking mind, it goes for it. I don't know where I'm at on it yet. It's a constant daily thought will pop into my head every day. Oh, you should probably sort that. No, don't sort it, because once you sort your thoughts about it, away it goes.
Why do we do it to ourselves?
I'm waiting for everybody to stop, and then I can go, yay, I don't have to do it. If everybody stopped, and of course this is ridiculous, everybody should age however they like. But if everybody let the wrinkles show, then we could all go, phew.
It would be so normalising, wouldn't it?
And nobody would compare and say, oh, she's aging terribly, But I think that responsibility probably lies within us as well, and women not saying it about other women, not saying they're aging well and not saying they're aging badly, just saying, you look great, or I love the way you choose your outfits, or I love what you've done with your hair, or your light, I've got a poem in my book that's coming out in March, which is actually a republish of my first ever book, but with more added. And it talks about a range of compliments that isn't based on the things that broke our self-worth in the first place. So have you lost weight? You look great. Have you been on a diet? These are all connected so deeply within us that they trigger age-old scars. Even if it's good, even if you say, wow, you look great, have you lost weight? I can see it. That is all adding to that. I am worthy if I look a certain way, if my weight is at a certain level. And then when you don't hear that, you feel judged in the opposite direction, even if nobody says anything. You notice that it's not, the positive's not coming. So, but again, decades and decades and centuries of conditioning. And how do you unravel that? It's not fast.
I was reading, there's a poem, I can't remember if it's actually called You Look Great, in Growing Brave.
Yes.
And it's exactly about that, isn't it? About the things, about what we hear when someone says you look great. It's like, I went through years of when someone said to me, you look well, I used to immediately translate as that means I put on weight.
Oh, listen, I was so used to hearing you don't look well. That made me feel great because I knew I was so skinny.
Yeah.
And when people said you look well, immediately, I knew it, I'm fat, and we can see the ridiculousness of that. When you hear things growing up, the neurons in your brain are fusing as you grow, and that becomes a part of your brain, part of your thinking. And the only way to retrain these neurons that fuse is to retrain them by repetition, like any muscle. And if you study something called brain training, which is where they put my son did it for a while, you watch things on the screen and the way your brain waves perform can strengthen certain parts of your brain and the bridge to each of them. And you can do that with repetitive placing your own thoughts in. It feels fake for a very long time, and then it becomes a neuron in your brain that is doing that for you automatically. And if you can imagine these things happening, it makes them worthwhile. Otherwise, you don't see the progression. So I always imagine these neurons in my brain, they take time to join differently. But yeah, the whole you look well. Feels like such an insult, doesn't it?
Yeah, always with that face as well. It's always like slightly sidelong compliment.
Dressed and frazzled and skinny, and because these were badges of honour at one time.
Mm.
And stressed, and how does she do it? That was, I'm doing things right. If they think I'm too busy, it's reminding yourself that it's okay for people to say, "Oh, look at you resting," and see it as a compliment. Don't jump up off the sofa when somebody comes in the house like you've done something wrong. Resting is doing. It's important. It's a job.
Yeah, we're just not trained that way, are we, though? I mean, I wrote about this recently. I found a picture of me from when I was editor of Red, and my husband had taken it on Eurostar, I think, or on the train. I mean, I looked god awful. I was grey and cross and tired and stressed, but I remember I was skinny and I didn't think I looked like a knackered person who needed to cut themselves some slack. I just thought, I don't know what I thought. I mean, I never really thought I looked great, but I didn't think I looked how I looked because of the value that we put on ourselves.
I know, it's crazy. And that used to be said in black and white, as long as you're skinny. Somebody saying to me, because I'm a redhead, well, you can't be ginger and fat. You all need to be skinny.
I've had that too. I had that too at school.
I remember thinking, okay, I'll have to be a skinny person all my life to carry off the ginger hair. And, that was said to me, not just once, as were many other damaging things. That's what we were given to work with.
Yeah.
So, no wonder we're unraveling it all now. But it's wonderful to see the changes.
How do you feel about your ginger now?
I'm still angry. At the way it's still allowed to be discussed in that disparaging manner. It's the last bastion of, you can still say it on TV. You can say, "Oh, I wouldn't marry a ginger." You can still say that. Now, you couldn't say that with any other type of person on the end. You couldn't. You would be cancelled. Oh, lighten up. It's just a colour of hair. Well, that's fine unless you were so brought down in your early formative years that you're a damaged person, constantly trying to find out why were you told that you didn't. I had a woman say to me once, "Oh, you're the girl my son's dating. Well, I hope that you never get serious because I don't want ginger grandkids."
Oh,
she
I'm
said it to
sorry.
my face.
Fuck off.
And recently, a year ago, somebody was having a conversation about their grandchild who was in the premature baby unit. And they were saying, he's going to be okay, and you could clearly see this had been a terribly traumatic time. And then she went, still, he's not ginger.
Oh.
And I was stood next to them and I thought, I've just heard this in this day and age. And everybody laughed because it's funny, So I'm still angry about it.
The only thing worse than being ginger was if you were ginger and fat, which is just like, I'm sorry, what?
It's all very well when you get things like names being called to you. But when you're made to feel like you got the bad genetics, we're going from just a bit of banter and, everybody has things that, specky four eyes or whatever it is that we get called. You're going into something much deeper there. You're telling somebody that they are not enough, that their genetics that they can do nothing about, that they might pass them on, that they've somehow got a line that is undesirable and nobody wants to procreate with. That's damaging, that's a whole different level of abuse, actually. We all have names called and that'll never fully be cleared up. And, a lot of it can be done quite lovingly and, affectionately in a way. That's a deeper level. I felt like, and my sister didn't get the red hair. My mum's blonde. I got the red hair from my dad. And I felt like I had been handed we play a game called Scabby Queen. Do you ever play Scabby Queen?
No, but I know it, yeah.
And you don't want to have the Scabby Queen in your hand, so you pretend you've not got it. So for decades, I pretended I was blonde. I didn't get the Scabby Queen. And, that is so damaging if that's the way you're treating yourself. At the end of the day, the buck stops with me. I picked that up and I ran with it. I didn't stand up and say, how dare you? I'm going to be proud. I went, oh no, I'm faulty.
So when did you go blonde?
As soon as I was allowed, 17 maybe. Yeah, and I never looked back. And I went back to my original colour about 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I did do it a couple of times and I never stuck it out. And, I would always go there and then go, oh no, I like being blonde better. Sadly, now my hair has lost its...
it's like the fading ginger thing. I've got that too.
The vibrancy. And so I do still have a few highlights because I think, it's a bit nothing, my colour without. I left it a wee bit too late to enjoy the sun while it was shining there. But again, lessons learned.
Thank you! I couldn't have completed this project without a little extra coffee. And since I brush with Colgate's Pro Series toothpaste with an expert-level whitening for a vibrant glow, I could show up to set each day camera-ready and smiling wide.
Well, Kelly, looks like a little Colgate gave you a lot of confidence.
Colgate Optic White. Find it at all major retailers.
Before I ask you the questions I always ask at the end, I just want to ask you, why do you think that your words have spoken so loudly, particularly to women in midlife? Because
I was in midlife and I was unraveling and it was actively happening and it was deafening for me, and obviously there were lots of other women out there who felt the same, and I just was lucky enough to be able to reach them by whatever fair wind of social media carried me, and that is what it is. I got to be heard and everybody went, oh yeah. And, we're all so similar, but bar a few things that differentiate us, and they're all surface things, where we live, what we do for a job. Really, underneath everything, we're all very, very similar. Of course we are. We're the same species. We've got the same built-in needs, and everything else has been programmed by society. I think because it was happening within me, in the way the energy reaches out and connects and fizzes and pops and sparks, I think there was a little bit of magic that just happened, a little bit of alchemy, and I just ran with it.
Right. Questions I always ask. What is your emotional age?
I feel like my emotional age is 30. I say that because I always feel like a third of the way through. I don't feel half the way through. I don't feel like old age is impending. I feel like a lot of my life wasn't lived as free as it could have been. So therefore, I've almost given myself back a couple of decades and gone, you've got loads of time, enjoy it, and really you've got decisions that you can change anything you want. You've got decisions you can make anytime, which I kind of felt like 30 was, except for really when we turn 30, we're hearing the ticking of, your biological clock and the pressure to get married. I was no children and wasn't married. And that did tick, tick, tick for me. The reason I say 30 is I think a lot of the wisdom that we have in this life comes from somewhere else anyway. I think a lot of us bring it or we're hearing it from generations who've passed before. You never stop getting your wisdom. You're never wise. You're just, you're just constantly learning and sharing. So the whole wisdom thing, you can have wisdom in your 20s, some people are old souls, but I feel as free as I could have felt when I was 30, but I didn't. And so I've kind of gifted that back.
The idea that I am, I'm 57, so probably, definitely well over halfway.
Yeah.
Oh no, there's so much to do.
But also you don't feel that you have to do the things that you used to think that you would have to do. So you're deciding what there is to do. And the freedom of that is, the difference. Like, oh, I better go and do all these things. No, I want to do some of the things, actually. Let me have a look at this list and check that it's not what I think I should want to do. What do I want to do? I spent, so many decades trapped, as we all do in many ways, that once you're free, you can look around and go, I'll decide now. I'll take it from here. Thank you very much. You get married when you decide, and you decide if that marriage is forever or if you need to change that. You can have as many careers as you like. They can all be entirely different. The only common denominator could be you. How fabulous, It's taken back control, but also the flow, allowing the flow to be the natural order. And the natural order is what stage of life you are in and what suits you for that stage. And as you get older, you want to slow down a bit in many ways, but you also want to speed up a bit in other ways.
Totally. Give us a book recommendation.
I am going to recommend to you, because I went last night and it is right here. It is a cookbook. Now, I'm not just recommending because I'm in it. This is the Hebridean baker who I adore. And what I love about him and all of his books is the stories. And I went to see him last night and he reminded me, when a message goes straight in to the core, that, stories are dying all the time, every generation. And he took it upon himself to keep the stories of the Hebrides and the generations before, and the way that they cooked and why they cooked and the stories that it came from and the funny tales. He took it upon himself to gather all of that up. So it's not just a cookbook, although the recipes are amazing. And my recipe, banana bread cookies, very nice. It's about the passing it down and how important it is that we keep remembering that lineage. I think it's vital.
So that's the Scottish cookbook.
Yeah, the Scottish cookbook by Conyuch MacLeod, the Hebridean baker.
Yeah. What advice would you give younger women?
Never attach your self-worth to something that moves. Your weight, your looks, your career, your relationship, your talents. All of these things can change. They can be taken, they can be removed, they can move. Your self-worth needs to be attached to the core of you, what makes you, you. And all of these other things are just bonuses or phases or stages or wonderful things that come your way. But keep that solid and never plant the seeds of your self-worth in anybody else's garden. They stay in your garden.
I think that's a brilliant bit of advice for anybody of any age, frankly. Who is an older woman who inspires you?
I think, and I don't think she's much older, very little, but I just absolutely adore the bones of Dawn French. She embodies the essence of what it is that I am aiming for, trying to be, because we all need a muse. If you are struggling in midlife and you want to know, who am I as an older version of me? Find someone that instantly makes you smile or makes you feel free when you look at them. Take them as your muse. It's okay to copy. We do it all our life. That's how we know that things are available. We see someone else living it and we go, I like the look of that. I like the look of the way she feels when she wakes up. And I want to be her in a couple of years when I grow up.
What's your superpower?
Oh, intuition. I'm very intuitive. We all are. It's how much you learn to lean into it, I think. You learn to hear your intuition, the true inner voice, above the noise of the inner voice that you created when the world first started telling you how to be, who to be. Don't be that, don't be this. So it's about learning to bring the volume up on your intuition again, because she's your real inner voice, and down with the volume of your inner critic.
Last one, how many fucks do you give?
Oh, still quite a few. I'd love to say 0, but I would be lying. And I don't do that anymore. I don't lie to myself. I still give a few. But again, I'm working on it and watching them and, and trying to neutralize them and then get rid of them. It's a work in progress, but I'm really getting there. I'm really, really getting there. And it's such a joyful thing to see, that when you see that you're getting to the stage of saying, 0 fucks given. But there are still bits of me that have to be chipped away at, and the other bits that need to be built up stronger.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy The Shift and would like to show your appreciation, why not buy me a coffee? Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/The Shift with Sam Baker. You can hear a new episode of The Shift every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please do rate, review, follow, tell your friends, because it really does help other people find us. And if you'd like to know more about my own experience of shifting, my book, The Shift, How I Lost and Found Myself After 40, and you can too, is out now in paperback.